So, today we're going to talk a bit about how to play Holy Paladin when you're healing inside dungeon groups. Before we get started, I do want to put out a quick disclaimer, since this is not going to be a how to get from good to expert when it comes to healing as a Holy Paladin. There's about 1,000 of those videos on YouTube right now, so I don't think we need to add another one to the pile. What this is going to be, however, is a video that shows how to get from I have no idea how to heal as a Holy Paladin and I don't know what I'm doing inside dungeon groups and I keep failing and people keep dying, to oh okay, so now I know how to get started and I know what I did wrong, and you know, if there's an oh crap moment, everyone is dying, what should I do? You know, I know everything that I need to know to get into a dungeon now. That's basically what I'm teaching in this video. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into Holy Paladin. Now, I am on my not so well geared Holy Paladin. Well, this is actually my red Paladin. Let me just switch over. I've kind of boycotted the newest content in Shadowlands, which is why my characters don't have the highest item level, but it doesn't really matter. The playstyle is the same no matter the item level. So with this, I now have my Holy Paladin ready. So what I'll do is I will start by explaining a little bit about what exactly the Holy Paladin playstyle is, because it is very different from all the other healers in the game. I think the closest you can get to it might be like a Discipline Priest or something. They're both like the most fun healers in the game, in my opinion, playing a Holy Paladin or Discipline Priest, which is why I play them. But it does have a learning curve in order to like get out of the regular healing mindset and into a oh, okay, this is way different, but it's quite fun once you learn it kind of mindset. We'll also talk a bit about talents. We'll talk a little bit about the different spells that you have, because you have quite a few spells. And at the end of the video, I will show me going through a dungeon and just sort of talking out loud what exactly I'm doing as I'm running the dungeon. But you should expect everyone to be pretty high item level compared to me, because people, for some reason, seem to jump back and do older content in order to farm conduits and stuff. So either way, it doesn't really matter, because I'll just be talking out loud and talking about what exactly I'm pressing and what I'm doing inside the dungeon, what I'm focusing on in order for people to not die once there's like an oh crap moment, everyone is dying type of thing. So with that said, the first thing you need to know about Holy Paladin is that we don't heal like other healers in the game. You know, usually healers have this sort of role where they stand in the back and then they heal party members at a distance and, you know, maybe deal some damage in between if there's time for it. Holy Paladin is completely different. Holy Paladin heals more the more you deal damage to enemies. And that might sound a little bit weird, because it sounds very similar to a Discipline Priest that actually heals by doing damage. Holy Paladins don't heal by dealing damage. They reduce their cooldowns when they're on cooldown by dealing damage. So basically you heal kind of in waves. So you heal, then you deal damage to reduce the cooldown of your healing spells, and then once you're back up again, then you heal again. And that's kind of how they work. Now in Shadowlands, we actually got something called Holy Power, which is, I think it was an old thing that was brought back again. But essentially this is going to allow for you to heal in between those cooldowns, which is something that I think personally is quite fun. But people have mixed feelings about Holy Power. I really like that they added the Holy Power. Some people really dislike it. So it's really, you know, personal opinion when it comes to that. So right now I have my target in front of me here. This is one of the enemies. The tank has just run in and started, you know, aggroing it, and we're fighting it. And basically my job as a Holy Paladin is to make sure to always use my Holy Shock on cooldown. And whenever that is on cooldown, I need to use Crusader Strike to reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock, because that is how we play. We don't actually heal by attacking. We reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock by attacking so we can use it again faster. That is essentially what a Paladin does, and you need to do this constantly as you move throughout the dungeon. Now, as we do this, we will be producing something called Holy Power by using these two spells. And the more Holy Power you have, or at least when you have 3 of them, allows for you to use Word of Glory or Light of Dawn. Word of Glory is the single target healing. Light of Dawn is AoE healing. Okay, so that is kind of like the fillers in between Holy Shock and Crusader Strike. So if we were to run up to my target here, but basically I'll just heal myself, and then I'll attack, and you can actually see I'm reducing the cooldown, then I'll use it again. Attack, and you can see it gets reduced, and I'll wait for it to come up again. Then I'll attack, reduce the cooldown, and And that is basically the rotation between these two spells. Now, as you may notice, I'm sort of capping on Holy Power here because I'm just sort of ignoring it for now. That is what you're going to be using in between these two spells. So basically you have 3 spells that you rotate through constantly as you're playing inside a dungeon. So if I were to use Holy Shock, reduce the cooldown. Oh, I actually capped, so I'll just use Word of Glory. Reduce the cooldown. Holy Shock, reduce the cooldown. Word of Glory. And now I'm just filling in with other spells because I have nothing else to press. Holy Shock, Crusader Strike to reduce the cooldown. Word of Glory, reduce the cooldown. Holy Shock, Word of Glory. Now, sometimes you may notice that if I'm at 1 second and I use Crusader Strike, it doesn't actually reduce the cooldown. That has something to do with the fact that you need to have a full second, at least, until Holy Shock is up again. Otherwise, Crusader Strike won't reduce the cooldown on your Holy Shock. So, you know, if you're above, let's say, 2 seconds, if you're at 2 seconds or more before you get it back up again, then Crusader Strike will actually reduce the cooldown of it. I don't know if it's a bug or whatever it might be, but that's how it works right now. With that said, we do have a bunch of other spells. We do also have Judgment. We have Consecration, which is our AoE damage circle that I can just sort of place on the ground. And these are essentially filler spells. So whenever you don't have Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, Word of Glory to press, you want to fill in with these spells in order to deal damage, essentially. These spells won't reduce anything. Those are just fillers. It's only Crusader Strike that is going to reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock. And now I'm sitting here saying that Crusader Strike is reducing the cooldown of Holy Shock, but that is actually also a talent that you need to choose inside your talents. And don't worry, we will get to the talents and I'll explain all the missing pieces once we get to it. But before we do that, I do want to mention that we do also have 3 other healing spells. We have Flash of Light, Holy Light, and we have Light of the Martyr. Light of the Martyr, I think it's called. Essentially, Flash of Light is going to be the one that you're most likely going to be using 85% of the time out of these 3. Holy Light is something that you're probably not really going to be using, at least not when you push higher content, because, you know, things are going so fast and it's better just to sit down and regain some mana than to worry about mana efficiency. So you're probably just going to be using Flash of Light most of the time. And then we have Light of the Martyr. Essentially, this is a healing spell that you can cast while moving. So you can, for example, oh, there we go. So you can, for example, use it as you're moving around. You don't have to wait and cast it like you would with, you know, Flash of Light or Holy Light. Like, you can just move around and cast it as you're running. But you'll notice something. You're actually losing health as you're casting it. And that's because Light of the Martyr is taking your health and producing it as healing to allies. And you might be thinking, okay, so why would I do that? In a lot of cases, you might have a lot of health yourself, and you might see a ally that is dying, and there might be a lot of stuff on the ground, for example, a boss fight or something that you can't step on, like you have to keep moving. And in those sort of cases, it's really good to like be able to move out of stuff and heal at the same time, because, you know, you're okay. You have maybe like 80% health, but there's a guy that has 10% health, so you might shift over some health to him. I use it quite often when I'm moving around, and often I'll actually combine it with my Holy Shock. I'll heal myself and then use Light of the Martyr on, you know, a person. I can find someone to heal. Oh, we can heal this person here. Okay. So I'll use that. You know, you can see my health is reducing, and you'll actually notice that I'm healing more than the health that is taken from me. So you do sort of like, you know, amplify the healing, even though you are taking a little bit of damage. So I can jump around and heal, and you'll notice that I'm losing health, and then I just sort of Holy Shock myself, and then I can keep doing it. At least that is something that I like to do, because I like to combine in that type of way. So that basically just sort of explains the 3 healing spells. Holy Light is kind of like, if you have the time for it, and there's like no one dying, really, you just sort of like use it to fill in and save some mana. Then Holy Shock. Flash of Light is if you're actually trying to save people and trying to save them by healing. But I do want to mention that Flash of Light is something that I use rarely. Like, I will use it, you know, in moments, but it's not something that I'm actually like focusing on as one of my primary healing spells because I rarely actually need to use it. But just keep in mind that you have it, okay? Because you will get a buff from time to time where you can, you know, you can cast it faster and it's sort of like there's a bonus to it. But just sort of keep in mind that you have it. And then of course, Light of the Martyr is if you're, you know, like I said, trying to dodge stuff and you can't stand still and cast, then you can always use that one to kind of fill in. But now with this healing rotation, there's one other thing that you need to keep in mind, which is something you really just need to think about at the beginning of a dungeon run, which is that we have something called Beacon of Light. That is a spell that you can apply to, let's say, a tank. I can actually apply it to this thing over here. And whenever I heal anyone else, it could be myself, it could be another party member, that person will also get healing. And we're actually talking about quite a bit. We're talking about 50% of the amount. So if I heal myself, you can see that I'm also healing that thing over there. So you need to keep that up on the tank during a dungeon run. And then you just sort of worry about healing the party members. In a lot of cases, I just kind of noticed that I rarely ever need to heal the tank, because as I'm healing my party members, the tank is getting healed too. So, you know, that is less to worry about. Another thing you also do want to make sure you do at the beginning of a dungeon run is to make sure you have Devotion Aura set up, because you have these auras as a paladin now. We received them in Shadowlands at least. And, you know, this one is going to help you out by diminishing the damage taken by every party member by 3%, which is quite a bit. So, just to recap really quick, make sure at the beginning of a dungeon run, you put the Beacon of Light on a person, and then you want to make sure that you have Devotion Aura turned on, which should just be by default. If you have it on, then it should just be on constantly. And then when you have the tank run in and attack something, you run in with the tank, you might heal the tank, so I'll heal someone, then I'll attack to reduce the cooldown, and now I Holy Shock again. Oh, we have Word of Glory. I'll use that one on a party member that's dying. Then I will Holy Shock, Crusader Strike to reduce the cooldown. Holy Shock, not Holy Shock, Word of Glory. Holy Shock, reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock. Word of Glory, reduce the cooldown. Holy Shock. And then I'll fill in with something else because, you know, they're not up yet. So, Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, Word of Glory, Crusader Strike. Fill in. Holy Shock. Word of Glory. Reduce the cooldown. Fill in. Holy Shock. Reduce the cooldown. You kind of get the rotation here, right? It's pretty simple. At least I think it is, because I've played it for so long. But as a new person who's never played Holy Paladin before, I hope you can sort of get the idea about how this plays. With that said, we're done with the actual rotation. Like, we haven't talked about the major cooldowns yet, but this is the basic, you know, just everyday rotation as you're running in a dungeon group. But now, before we start talking about the bigger cooldowns, I do want to mention the mastery that we have as a Holy Paladin, because usually I won't really mention the mastery, because, you know, it's something you can kind of discover by yourself, but it is actually quite important that you know about Holy Paladin's mastery that you have inside your spells. So if I were to check out my mastery, you can see that it's called Lightbringer, and it basically increases the healing that you do to a party member the closer you stand to that person. This is something that is really important to know. So if you're in a dungeon group and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I can stand at a distance, I can stand at the back just like every other healer inside the game and just kind of like heal from a distance, then sure, you could do that, but you're losing a lot of healing, or at least you're going to be healing the ranged, you know, like the ranged DPS that are standing in the back with you, but the tank and the melees that are taking the most damage, you're not healing them as much as you could, because you need to be standing up with the enemies and heal the party members that are close to the enemies more, because they take more damage. They need to get up to the enemies and need to attack the enemies, okay? So if you don't like being close to enemies and healing at the same time, then you're losing a lot of healing there. So that was basically the mastery explained, and I just really quickly needed to explain it because it is important, you need to keep it in mind. With that said, let's talk about talents, because we do have talents as a Holy Paladin. Now, remember when I kept saying that we use Crusader Strike to reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock? That is actually a talent that you need to choose, and it is pretty mandatory. Like, of course, you could choose Bestow Faith, which some people like to choose, And do keep in mind, I'm mainly focusing on dungeons right now, which is basically a single target healing spell you can apply to someone and then it heals them, you know, after 5 seconds. You don't want to be picking that talent. You really do want to, at some point, end up using Crusader's Might, which is the one that reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock, because Holy Shock, I promise you, is going to be the main spell you're going to be using throughout a dungeon. So the more you can Holy Shock, the more healing you'll do, which is a lot better than Bestow Faith. Now, in the second row, you just kind of choose whatever you feel like might be the best option for you. I'm not a min-maxer. I'm not going to tell you, oh, you need to choose this talent, otherwise you're playing the game wrong. Like, I'm not that type of person, you know? It's really up to the person playing. Me personally, I've chosen to play with Judgment of Light. Judgment of Light just basically, you know, if I attack an enemy, which again plays into the whole, you know, you gotta attack enemies playstyle, then if people attack that enemy that I'm attacking, then they also heal for a slight amount. So this is just kind of like passive healing that you don't really notice, but it's just kind of neat to have, whereas this one is more of a, oh no, your tank is about to die kind of thing. And this one is a on-demand, you just sort of use it and it heals everyone just a little bit. Like not a lot, but just a little bit. On the next row, you just kind of choose whatever you feel like, because this is a utility row. I chose Fist of Justice, which is focused more on single target stuns. And the next row, I chose Rule of Law, which is something that I choose because it is really good in combination with, first of all, your Light of Dawn, but also your Divine Toll, which is the Covenant ability if you chose Kyrian. Basically, what Rule of Law does is that it increases your mastery by 50%, which means that you don't need to stand right next to people to heal them even more. So this one is pretty good. If, you know, people are kind of spread out and you want to heal everyone, you know, for panic moment, basically. Like, this one can help out a little bit when it comes to healing all the people around you. On the next row, I chose Divine Purpose. This is a really good ability since it has a small chance of making your holy power abilities free for a single cast. You may have noticed that sometimes when I was attacking this thing over here, I could actually cast Word of Glory twice. On the next row, I chose Awakening, which is a really cool ability in combination with Divine Purpose, because just like Divine Purpose having a 15% chance of giving you a free Holy Power ability, if you use Holy Power abilities, you also get a 15% chance of getting Avenging Wrath for 10 seconds, which is your big cooldown. So you get a free 10 second of that at random moments throughout the healing process. And it just looks really cool and just feels amazing once you get those random procs of Avenging Wrath for 10 seconds. So that is one that I definitely recommend using as well. But now, with all these talents chosen, there's really only 2 that I would say, like, these are mandatory. Like, you have to choose these, otherwise you will be screwing yourself over quite a bit. And those 2 are, of course, the first one, which is Crusader's Might, that reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock. And you should also be choosing Glimmer of Light on the last row. Basically, if you're doing a dungeon run, Beacon of Faith is going to allow for you to put 2 beacons, you know, on 2 people, but it decreases the amount of healing that both those 2 people receive. I would only choose this if you're running a raid group where, you know, you want both tanks to receive healing at the same time. Then I would, you know, maybe choose that talent. And even then, in most raid groups, you would still be choosing Glimmer of Light. But if you have like a case where the tanks are taking heavy damage, both of them, in a raid group, then you might be choosing Beacon of Faith. And the issue here is, of course, if you decide to choose Beacon of Faith, you're basically decreasing the amount of healing you do by your Beacon of Light, which means that you're doing less healing to the tank in a dungeon run if you choose this talent. So don't choose that talent. Beacon of Virtue is kind of I would call this one a beginner talent. It's one of those talents where you can just on demand press Beacon of Light, and then everyone in the party around you will receive healing whenever you heal just one person. So if everyone is taking damage, this one is really good for oh crap moments, because it's on a 15-second cooldown, so you basically have it constantly. It does seem really good for beginners when you read it out loud like this, like everyone is receiving healing, wow, that's amazing. But there's an issue with it, which is that you do also lose your Beacon of Light, which means that, you know, you don't actually have a beacon on your tank throughout the run, which means that you constantly need to also heal your tank as you're doing the dungeon run, which is not really something that I think is that much fun. Like, it's really about personal preference. Do you want to heal your tank constantly, but then you do also have this AoE heal on demand for everyone? Or do you want to not babysit your tank as much and just focus on healing DPSs, which to be honest, is quite easy when you have Holy Shock and Word of Glory. Like, in general, what I'm trying to say is I don't recommend choosing these two talents. Maybe Beacon of Virtue if you're like trying out Holy Paladin and you want to play it safe, but Glimmer of Light is the best option here. And with all this talk here, I haven't actually talked about what exactly Glimmer of Light is. Basically, it puts a buff on a person, so if I were to use Holy Shock on myself, you'll notice that I get Glimmer of Light, which basically means that the next time I cast Holy Shock on anyone, I receive a little bit of healing from that Holy Shock. So if you put this 30-second buff on all the party members, so let's say I have it on myself now, and I'll put it on this thing over here once it's back up again. So now that also has Glimmer of Light on it. Basically now both of us are receiving healing whenever I heal another party member. So you can see I healed that person and I also healed myself a little bit there. So with all this said, I've talked about so many things which has probably overloaded your brain by now. I've talked about the basic rotation. I've talked about the Devotion Aura and the Beacon of Light that you need to use at the beginning of a dungeon. I've talked about the Aura Mastery, which means that you need to stand close to people to heal them, at least if you want to heal them more. And we also talked about the talents, which you also need to keep in mind, because they also have special perks to them. And we haven't even talked about all the major cooldowns, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 major cooldowns. I can just like hear people say, oh no, my brain is melting. How are we supposed to like worry about all these different cooldowns as well? I think really the basic ones that I do want to talk about are going to be the Holy Paladin specific ones, because you do of course have Lay on Hands, which is the one that all the specs for Paladin has, which basically heals up a party member pretty much to full health. So you can use that on your tank if they are about to die. But when it comes to Holy Paladin specific cooldowns as a healer, we have, first of all, Divine Toll if you chose Kyrian as your Covenant. I'm pretty sure it is still the strongest Covenant ability. It is really good for healing up all the party members, and it's on a really short cooldown. It's only 1 minute. So if everyone's taking damage, and just kind of use it, and everyone is just like healing up really fast. So it's really good to use whenever, you know, oh crap moments are happening. Then we do also have Avenging Wrath, which is of course the one that you constantly, because you chose this talent of course, are getting 10 seconds off. So if you do have a moment where you need to control when Avenging Wrath is happening and everyone is sort of like taking damage and about to die, then you can use this one to increase your healing and critical strike over 20 seconds, which is a long time to have a really good buff. So this is basically the main cooldown that you need to keep in mind, because it's only on a 2-minute cooldown, and you know, just kind of use it if people are about to die, basically. And then we have Aura Mastery, which is one that just basically buffs whatever aura you've chosen right now. So if I've chosen Devotion Aura, which you should have chosen, then basically this one goes in and says that, okay, instead of 3% damage reduction, everyone, whether it being in a dungeon group or everyone in a raid, are going to receive a 15% reduction on how much damage they take. So this is a really awesome one when everyone is taking damage and you want to diminish the amount of damage everyone is taking. This cooldown is pretty good as well. And I think that's basically it when it comes to playing a Holy Paladin. So that was a quick crash course. I've been recording for an hour because I kept getting interrupted, but hopefully when I edit the video down, it's just going to be a quick crash course. So what I'll do now is I will queue up for a dungeon group, which is most likely going to be filled up with people who are overpowered, and I'll just sort of talk and explain what I'm doing as I'm doing the dungeon group. So you can sort of like get the play style and what I'm focusing on, you know, just, you know, what am I doing different from you if you tried out Holy Paladin but failed at it, and what exactly am I doing there? So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Just kind of like queue up for, let's just do a random heroic, because this guy is not too high item level, so I think that is pretty okay. Oh, this one's pretty good. I think this one's pretty good for testing out. So when we enter the dungeon, I see one guy has lost some health. When we enter the dungeon, what I'll do to start with is I will put my Beacon of Light on my tank, and you'll actually see my spells on the side here, because they will be popping up as we do this run here, because I do have weak aura, so very easy to see. As you can see, he has the beacon and he's AFKing for a little bit. Go. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to run in and follow the tank, which is overpowered, by the way. because I was expecting that. And just kind of like, you know, place my beacon of light for people that need it. He was just running ahead. I'll use it on my hunter. I'll deal some damage to reduce the cooldown. I'll heal my warrior just to give him the buff. My microphone a little bit. And I'll just sort of run in. Keep my tank. I'll use Word of Glory. Reduce the cooldown. Use Holy Shock. Word of Glory. Reduce the cooldown. Oh, everyone is taking damage. So I'll use Holy Shock. Use my, what is it called? Rule of Law, the talent. And do my Light of Dawn, it's called. The AoE heal for the Holy Power. Do it again. There we go. Holy Shock. Somebody's losing health and we're moving. I'll just use my Light of the Marcher. And do keep in mind, which I haven't mentioned yet, Light of the Marcher, if I say that correctly, does not heal your tank if he has the Beacon of Light. This one does not do it, but all the other healing spells will. So, you know, your tank receives healing with all the spells except that one spell. So you can't just spam it and also save the tank. Holy Shock. Do some AoE damage. Reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock. And heal someone. I'll do AoE heal with Light of Dawn. A little bit of lag going on. That's okay. AoE heal. And see, this actually procced my my Avenging Wrath with the 15%, the talent. We run in. Kinda too sad that I don't actually get to do this with a heroic item level dungeon group, because they're kind of overpowered here. Just keep Holy Shocking. Word of Glory, if needed. Holy Shock again. I just noticed that I keep using Crusader Strike off cooldown. And then I just focus on these two spells. Do some AoE. Go. Oh. Grab the stuff. I may be doing a tutorial, but I do want the loot as well. That tank is just rushing ahead, pulling everything. So we might actually get a small challenge here. I would love to get just a teeny tiny challenge. So again, Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, Light of Dawn, Word of Glory, boost the cooldown, I'll Glimmer myself, Word of Glory, boost the cooldown, Word of Glory, Holy Shock, Light of Dawn, boost the cooldown, Holy Shock, Word of Glory. As you'll notice, Paladin isn't really about AoE heal that much. We basically do a crap ton of single target healing to keep people from dying. That is basically the Paladin playstyle, which I just noticed. we don't do much AoE heal. So notice that everyone except the tank right now has the Glimmer buff. So everyone is basically healing whenever I Holy Shock. Holy Shock the Hunter there, just for the sake of it. Do it on my tank as well to give him the buff. I'll Word of Glory my warrior. Make sure everyone is buffed up with Glimmer of Light. Word of Glory. Holy Shock. Boost the cooldown. One thing to mention about the Paladin as well, which I didn't mention, is that Paladin has an insane amount of mana preservation. Basically, you should never run out of mana as a Holy Paladin. If you do, you've been doing quite a bit of pulls and maybe even misuse your spells a little bit. So there we go. Again, basically just went up, did my rotation, the basic rotation. I've yet to use a cooldown, to be honest. To keep up my Glimmer, reduce the cooldown, Holy Shock the tank, reduce the cooldown, place AoE damage, Holy Shock the what do you call it, the warrior, reduce the cooldown, Word of Glory the warrior, Holy Shock the hunter. There's a lot of lag going on here. AoE heal, Holy Shock myself, because why not? AoE heal, Holy Shock. AoE heal. Like, I'm kind of reaching a moment here where I can just use whatever, because no one is dying, so we can just, like, do I want a single target heal, or do I want an AoE heal, or how do I want to do this? Up here. Hold. Think. Yeah, there's a lot of stuttering going on. I don't know what that's about. Where's our warrior? Okay, I think he AFK'd. So again, Holy Shock. Holy Shock. I don't need to use Word of Glory, even though I'm capped, so just save it for now. Holy Shock the Hunter. We'll do some fillers, so some AoE damage. I'll use my Judgment. Oh, doesn't know what to do. He did not. Holy Shock the Warrior. I'll use Word of Glory on my Hunter. Holy Shock the Tank to get the Glimmer. Holy Shock my Hunter. Use Holy Shock on myself to get the Glimmer. And I'll just use Word of Glory on myself. Oh, I got Avenging Wrath. That was cool. That was cool. I like getting Avenging Wrath. It feels awesome. So he's just gonna run in and pull everything. That's fine. Let's go ahead and use a cooldown here. So I'll buff the warrior with Holy Shock by getting him Glimmer. Word of Glory, AoE damage. Holy Shock the warrior. AoE heal. I will Holy Shock the tank. I'll actually use my Divine Toll. I'll Word of Glory myself because I'm actually taking damage. Oh. AoE heal. Reduce the cooldown. Holy Shock. Now, do notice, at no point so far have I used Flash of Light, Holy Light, or Light of the Marcher. Like I said, you rarely ever use it. Like, a lot of people that play Paladin think that you're constantly using Flash of Light, but you're not. Like, really, if there's like a buff you can get from time to time, which I'll show you once I get it, that might cause you to like use it. So I'll just keep attacking. Okay, heal damage. I'll heal, heal, heal. Oh, there it is. It is called... What is it called? Infusion of Light. That actually buffs your holy the Flash of Light. So you might want to use it at that point, just for the heck of it. It's the basic same rotation. So you just deal damage, reduce the cooldown, and then you just use Word of Glory when needed, or Holy Shock on cooldown. Off cooldown, I think it's called. It's pretty simple. Of course, we do also have the Aura Mastery and Avenging Wrath. I didn't even touch those yet, but that is because we have an overpowered tank, so I have had no reason to so far. I'll use it over here just for fun. Over here. I'll buff my tank, even though he's at full health, with Holy Shock to give him Glimmer. AoE damage. I'll Glimmer myself. I'll use Word of Glory. Holy Shock. Word of Glory. Damage. I actually forgot to use my cooldown there, just to show it off. I'm using this guy. I'll buff my Hunter with Glimmer. Reduce the cooldown. I will Glimmer my tank. Do damage rotation. And let's go ahead and use it. So I'll use Avenging Wrath. Boom. You know, that is my oh crap, everyone is dying button. You can even combine it with Divine Toll if you want to, because it's a really, really awesome way to combine things. Basically, when a person takes damage and you use Holy Shock on them or Word of Glory, they get back to full health. That is the basic concept you need to get out of this. There's no need to run Beacon of Virtue like the last talent on the talent row here. Or oh crap, everyone is dying, AoE healing. It's like I said, it's kind of like the beginner talent that people choose. It's not something that once you're comfortable with Paladin, you should be running. So, with that said, that is the basic playstyle of Holy Paladin. The only thing you need to do different here compared to what I did, because we had an overpowered tank, so I didn't actually get to use them, is just keep in mind that if everyone is dying and you can tell that your Holy Sharks and your Word of Glory is not cutting it, use Divine Toll, or use Avenging Wrath, or use Aura Mastery as your emergency cooldowns. If the tank is dying, you can of course use Lay on Hands to like instantly give him almost full health again. You know, just like the basic Paladin utility you have, because you also have Blessing of Protection, you have Blessing of Sacrifice. If you're taking damage, you have Divine Protection for yourself, and you also have Divine Shield for yourself. So there's like a bunch of cooldowns here that are just Paladin specific, and I didn't actually need to touch any of these. Like, I just basically did my basic rotation, everyone fine. Of course, because we had an overpowered tank, but we don't want to say that too loud. So that's basically how I heal as a Holy Paladin. Do the rotation that I did, and you'll be fine. There's of course probably some min-maxes that are gonna tell me that, you know, there's a slight difference in focus in some things, you know, certain spells that needs to be used for certain situations, because I'm not maximizing my gameplay here. But this is how you want to do it. This is the basic play style. Okay, so if you're just starting out, do it like this. And once you get comfortable with it like this, start looking up min-maxing stuff if that's something that... So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this guide, and I'll see you next time.